Welcome back. Over the past couple of years, AI has been surrounded by an incredible amount of hype. Depending on who you listen to, it was either about to replace millions of jobs, completely transform every industry, or somehow become the most important technological shift since the internet itself. Startups rushed to put AI powered on their websites, investors poured money into anything remotely connected to artificial intelligence, and social media made it feel like the future had already arrived. But when you step away from the headlines and look at how people are actually using AI in real life, the picture becomes much less dramatic and, honestly, much more interesting. Because the truth is, most people are not using AI for futuristic, science fiction-style tasks. They're not building autonomous robots or replacing entire departments overnight. Instead, they're using AI for surprisingly ordinary things, writing emails they don't want to spend 20 minutes drafting, summarizing meetings they barely had time to process, fixing awkward messages before sending them, generating presentation ideas at the last minute, or speeding up work that would otherwise feel repetitive and frustrating. And I think that tells us something important about how technology really gets adopted. The tools that win are not always the most impressive ones. They're usually the ones that quietly become useful. Take ChatGPT, for example. At this point, mentioning ChatGPT almost feels obvious, but what makes it interesting is not simply that people use it, it's the variety of ways they use it. A student might use it to break down a difficult concept into simpler language before an exam. A startup founder might use it to brainstorm product ideas or refine a pitch. A marketer might use it to rewrite campaign copy. A developer might use it to debug code or think through implementation options. A manager might use it to draft a difficult email that needs the right tone. The reason ChatGPT became so widely adopted is because it doesn't force users into a narrow workflow. It behaves less like traditional software and more like a flexible assistant that adapts to different kinds of work. Another category where AI has become genuinely useful is meeting automation. This is not the most glamorous use case, but it's one of the most practical. Anyone who works in a professional environment knows how much time gets wasted in meetings, not just during the meeting itself, but afterward, when people try to remember what was said, what decisions were made, and who agreed to do what. AI tools like Otter or Fireflies help solve that problem in a very straightforward way. They transcribe conversations, summarize discussions, and identify action items automatically. That might not sound revolutionary, but it removes a very real pain point. And often, that's exactly where successful products find their value. Writing assistance is another area where AI has become deeply integrated into everyday work. While people often imagine AI writing books or producing elaborate content, most real-world use is much simpler. Professionals use AI to improve emails, rewrite unclear messages, adjust tone, clean up grammar, or structure internal documents more efficiently. Tools like Grammarly remain relevant for exactly this reason. Sometimes users don't need a powerful conversational AI. They simply need their communication to sound clearer and more professional. That may seem like a small problem, but small problems that happen every day create enormous opportunities for useful products. For developers, coding assistants have become one of the most impactful categories. Tools like GitHub Copilot are now part of many developers' normal workflow, not because they replace engineers, but because they accelerate routine tasks. Writing repetitive functions, generating boilerplate code, suggesting syntax, or helping explain unfamiliar code all save time. Of course, writing software is about much more than producing lines of code. It involves architecture, judgment, debugging, trade-offs, and deep contextual understanding. But that doesn't make AI less useful. In fact, it makes the real role of AI clearer, not replacing expertise, but amplifying it. Visual content creation is another area where AI has found practical use, although perhaps not in the way social media often presents it. Tools like Midjourney, DALL, and Adobe Firefly are undeniably impressive, but most professionals are not spending their days generating fantasy artwork. Instead, they use these tools for mock-ups, concept exploration, presentation visuals, advertising ideas, branding experiments, or rapid creative iteration. In many cases, the goal is not perfect output. It's speed. AI allows people to move from idea to visual concept much faster than traditional workflows would allow, and that speed can be incredibly valuable in fast-moving environments. Research is also changing. Traditionally, finding information online meant opening multiple tabs, comparing sources, filtering noise, and often getting distracted halfway through the process. AI-powered research tools are shifting that experience by making information retrieval feel more direct. Instead of hunting through links, users increasingly expect structured answers and faster synthesis. That doesn't mean traditional search is disappearing, but it does suggest a change in behavior. People value convenience, and when technology reduces friction, habits begin to shift. What's fascinating about all of this is that the most successful AI products are often not the ones doing the most extraordinary things. They succeed because they solve repetitive, frustrating, ordinary problems. That's an important lesson, especially for startup founders who assume success requires building something revolutionary. In reality, many of the strongest products succeed by making existing workflows smoother, faster, and less painful. A better writing experience. Smarter note-taking. Faster coding. Easier research. These are not glamorous transformations, but they create habits, and habits create product retention. Of course, AI still has significant limitations. It can generate inaccurate information, misunderstand context, produce overconfident nonsense, suggest buggy code, or miss important nuance. That's why the most effective users do not treat AI as an unquestionable authority. They treat it as a tool for acceleration, not judgment. Human oversight still matters. Expertise still matters. Context still matters. And perhaps that's the most realistic way to understand where AI fits today. Maybe the biggest misconception about AI is that its success depends on dramatic disruption. But history suggests something different. Truly transformative technologies often become powerful not because they arrive with a cinematic moment, but because they slowly become part of normal life. The internet felt unfamiliar at first. Smartphones once seemed unnecessary. Cloud software once felt abstract. Then eventually, they became infrastructure. AI may be following the same path, not because of hype, but because usefulness tends to outlast excitement. So when people ask which AI tools actually matter, I think the better question is this: which tools solve real, repeated problems for ordinary people in a way that saves time, reduces friction, and fits naturally into existing habits? Because those are the tools people keep using. And in technology, repeated use is what ultimately matters. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.